As the months tick by and we all continue to reckon with living under the Trump regime, things are getting increasingly worse in all aspects of our lives, but especially, I think, in the public health sphere. All because of Donald and Washington, D.C.'s resident sociopath, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy. Kennedy is peeling back centuries of progress that have been made in the realm of health and vaccines, stigmatizing vaccines, connecting them erroneously and falsely with autism, allowing measles outbreaks to spread throughout the United States, all because he has an agenda. We're going to dive into all of the awful things that RFK is doing in Health and Human Services, but I want to start with some of the backlash he's been receiving, this time from Illinois Governor JB Pritzker, who is on the right side of everything, quite frankly. Take a look what Pritzker had to say this week about Kennedy's egregious failures.
Kids and adults with autism, loving contributors to our society, don't deserve to be stigmatized by a weird Nepo baby who once stashed a dead bear in the backseat of his car.
Yeah, that is how you respond to the incompetent and wildly misguided and, quite frankly, sadistic actions of people like Robert Kennedy. You don't pull your punches. You remind people that this miscreant, this completely unqualified hack, has no business being Secretary of Health and Human Services. You remind them that he used to be an environmental attorney. You remind them that he does not have an advanced degree in any of the sciences, let alone virology or immunology. Governor Pritzker is angry about Kennedy's attacks on the autistic community, which are, quite frankly, disqualifying all in and of themselves. Pritzker is angry, as all of us should be, for good reason. Kennedy's newest policies are wreaking havoc on children and their families across the United States, including Pritzker's home state of Illinois. So what exactly has Kennedy been doing to provoke Pritzker's ire? Obviously, a lot of what he's doing is flying under the radar, overshadowed by Donald's everlasting economic disasters and, of course, the Epstein scandal. Now, neither one of those things, the economic catastrophe, the Epstein scandal, should drop out of public view, but the assaults on American health should be prominent in our discussions about what is so wrong with the Trump regime in general and Kennedy specifically. So while the news may be dominated by Donald and his incompetence and his inability to do what's right for the people in this country, we have to keep a close eye on the dangerous implications of everything Kennedy is doing at Health and Human Services. The FDA signaled just this week that it may revoke its authorization of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine for healthy children under the age of 5. Here's Dr. Susan Kressley with more details.
Vaccines remain one of the most effective tools we have to protect children's health. They are incredibly safe. That hasn't changed. We are here because there are deliberate efforts underway to distract from these facts, create unnecessary fear and anxiety, and mislead the public. There were 17 highly qualified experts that had gone through a rigorous process. They looked at all the data. They had robust, transparent conversations in the public purview where they could decide what was in the best interest of public health. What happened recently is that no longer took place. Those experts were sidelined. The science was sidelined and replaced by a party of 8 and then 7 people who had way less experience on the vaccines and the science behind how to interpret the data. And there was a decision made that was outside the normal process and without scientific basis.
Vaccines are safe. They saved untold millions of lives in the last decades. In the past, vaccines were hailed as miracle drugs. They eradicated horrific diseases like smallpox and polio that destroyed lives and ended many. So, what's changed? Most people never questioned the MMR vaccine or the flu vaccine. Not until COVID did people start, in much larger numbers, start questioning the effectiveness and safety of vaccines, which leads us to this question. What is the motive of somebody like Kennedy in his assault against science, the Secretary of Health and Human Services? What is his motive? Why do people like him so desperately want to convince the American people that vaccines are not safe? That in fact, it is better to spin the roulette wheel and see if your children can survive their childhoods by not being protected from diseases that have been almost entirely eradicated. What indeed is the motive of the entire Trump regime in putting somebody as egregiously incompetent and, quite frankly, evil in charge of Americans' health? I think one way of looking at it is they want us all weak, sick, and poor. Why? Well, that's a question for another time. It isn't just COVID vaccines that Kennedy is coming after, as we know. Amidst that aforementioned measles outbreak across the United States and lower vaccination rates than ever before, Kennedy continues to undermine the validity and effectiveness of the measles vaccine, which makes matters much worse. As children go back to school this month, we're learning that new data from the CDC about last year's school year suggests a very grim pattern emerging. In 2024, kindergarten vaccination rates declined for the 5th consecutive year. Meanwhile, vaccine exemptions reached a record high, all while the United States sees a 3-decades-long record measles outbreak that, as far as I'm aware, has killed at least 2 children, the first deaths in over a decade. In response, Kennedy undermined the most effective method of prevention, widespread immunization, and continues to do so with both COVID and measles. Again, a reminder, measles was almost entirely eradicated. Why bring it back? Why risk bringing back diseases like polio? Why risk the spread of diseases like whooping cough, which, again, can potentially destroy and end the lives of our children? Why? Well, this is what happens when you put sociopaths in charge who do not care about human life. They just want to get their way. What that way is and why they want it that way, I tell you, I do not know. It is unfathomable to me. But what is perhaps more unfathomable to me is how many deluded people listen to them. Health professionals, the people we should be listening to when we believe in science, are sounding the alarm about just how detrimental Kennedy's initiatives really are. A grassroots organization of health professionals called Defund Public Health has released a report outlining major health challenges in the United States and calling for the removal of Kennedy from Health and Human Services. The report from about 3,000 health professionals and allies is an attempt to combat disinformation and a complete lack of information from health officials, as it's becoming harder and harder to get reliable health data from our government. Again, why? That is insanity. It is insane that doctors do not have access to the most up-to-date health data. So therefore, when it comes to advising their patients, they are essentially operating in the dark. Why? While we're in the midst of this crisis, Donald and Kennedy's major layoffs and staff cuts at our health agencies are making matters even worse. As Kennedy guts our public health and safety, he's also leaving critical agencies horribly understaffed. The recent victim of Donald and Kennedy's incompetence and drive to defund everything are veterans, of course. The Department of Veterans Affairs released a report on Tuesday in which the VA's Office of Inspector General, or OIG, found Veterans Health Administration facilities are facing major staffing shortages. They reported 4,434 staffing shortages this fiscal year alone, which is a 50% increase from fiscal year 2024. Almost all of the facilities, 94% of them, reported severe shortages for medical officers, while 79% of facilities reported severe shortages for nurses. Worse, the survey of the medical centers was completed in April. Therefore, they did not fully capture the extent to which Donald and those like Kennedy have reduced the VA's workforce. Many of the workers who took the latest buyout offer left after the survey was completed. And remember, of course, many others were forced out in different ways. That means the conditions are even much worse than those being reported. Pay attention to what they do, not to what they say. These people lie over and over and over again. One, in order to get their way, and two, in order to spread the propaganda that they hope will convince the American people that they know better than the experts. Do not trust the experts. They are trying to convince us. Well, we do here. And we will always, always present to you the actual facts as given to us by the actual experts. Robert Kennedy is not an expert in anything. He is a charlatan and a sociopath. Please take a second and like and share this video. Be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.